So, hi everyone and welcome. Just catching you up on a few things, what I've been up to, what I'm doing at the moment, um, and where I've been. So, you might have noticed I'm not publishing as much flash fiction and microfiction on my Substack as I might have done um, over the last 2 years, and that's purely because I'm too busy. I'm so busy. Like, gone are the days when I was just writing what I wanted and getting it out there. I am busy all the time. Um, so I felt, well, why don't we just have a catch up and I'll tell you what has been going on and what's coming and what I'm currently up to as well. So hi, if you're just joining me right now. Um, where do we start? So yeah, it's been a few months. I haven't done an update since I did those live readings for the Midnight Vault 2. So if you missed that, that was in November. We did like a Twilight Zone themed event where 98 people wrote some fiction to do with it was kind of themed short stories that are would meet with the vibe of the Twilight Zone. So that was 98 stories. I didn't read 98 stories. I read out a few, predominantly people from Europe, or the UK. But yeah, that was fun. But that was the last time I've done anything live. That was the last time I've talked to everyone and caught you up on things. So I thought I'd just quickly jump on tonight and go through what's been happening. So it's been ages, but I'm currently in a situation where I've got 4 books that I need to market all the time because the minute you stop talking about your book, it ceases to exist. So marketing 4 books at once. Then I've got to go through edits for a new book, so a 5th book coming. I've got to go through edits for a basically a second edition, a relaunch of a previously published book, which I'll tell you more about in a bit. And I'm just busy. I've just got so much to do. So that's why I haven't been posting much in the way of like flash and microfiction. There's just nothing. There's no space left in my head for that. And yeah, so treading water with all these things to do at once. Um, I'm currently serializing Salome, which you might have seen. So that is a gothic Victorian, another gothic mystery novel. It's set in the same universe as Muldoon. It's well, it's set in the same city, but it's all taking place in like Victorian Liverpool. And it's essentially a backstory for someone who's going to become quite a major character in Muldoon novels. So I thought, well, because the next Muldoon novel is basically going to be another supernatural thriller, I needed to know the lore and the universe and how it all works. Because let's face it, if you're going to write like a vampire novel or a werewolf novel, or a witch novel, you need to decide what is your mythology around that. What are the rules? Because there's rules. Like even if you're using a magic system, like what are the rules? So Salome was a way of me telling the rules to myself through a new horror book. So Salome is currently being serialized just on my Substack. And people are enjoying that so far. I'm enjoying the steady rhythm of getting it out each week. I think that's the only way I will complete a book. I just can't do it locked away in a room by myself. I have to put it on a serial on Substack to get it done. So if you haven't been reading it, it's not that big a deal. The main thing for me is that I'm getting it written and I'm getting it out there each week. So that'll be good when it's released. Um, and yeah, so the biggest news of all, the biggest thing is you've probably, if you hang around on notes, I don't know if you do, you might have seen I've been sharing a lot of stuff to do with Tiny Worlds Publishing. Um, and you kind of you assume that because you know what's going on, like everyone else will. But like my actual real life best friend who sees everything that I do, she she said to me yesterday when I saw her, she was like, "So what's Tiny Worlds then?" And I thought, well, you see all my social media posts. So if you don't really understand what it is, then I haven't explained it to anyone. So Tiny Wheels Publishing, it's an independent publisher, and Jay Curtis is behind the wheel. So Jason Curtis, you might know him from the Midnight Vault, the original. Um, I've worked with Jay before, and he's around on Substack. He started Tiny Worlds publishing company, and then he reached out like a couple of months ago. He reached out and he was like, "Oh, I've got this idea. What do you think?" And I thought, well, I've worked with you before, um, and I liked working with you, and I like working with the other writers who are involved in this. So yeah, let's give it a go. And I've basically ended up, I'm a partner of Tiny Worlds now, and that just means that when you buy a book from Tiny World Publishing, it's 100% indie. So, the money goes to independent authors, it goes to an independent publisher. It's indie all round. So it's not just some random billionaire, it's Jay Curtis. Unless he's a billionaire and he hasn't told us. But you'll have to ask him. But no, 100% indie. And I just thought that is an amazing thing to be part of. I'm really excited about it. I'm trying not to be too excited about it, like nag him until he doesn't want to work with me anymore. But because of this, Oceanus, so you may remember, you may not. So Jay wants to be a random billionaire, don't we all? You're too normal. Like, I think you're just too normal, too nice to be a billionaire. I think there's a criteria that we have to meet, and the more weird you are, maybe the more chance you have. But Oceanus, you may remember, was my debut novel that I published here on Substack in September 2024, and Jay got in touch and he was like, you know what? Why don't we do a second edition? Um, so we're going to do a second edition, and it's going to have forwards. It's going to have a little edit, but it's not going to change the story. It's not going to change what was great about the debut novel. And at the end of the day, it was a debut. So as tempting as it is for me to go through it all with a fine tooth comb and change this, change that, change this, I have to remember that it was the rawness and the fact that that was my first novel that made it special. So there'll be little tweaks here and there, but it's not going to be a complete overhaul. It's just getting a bit of a facelift, and there's going to be extra bits. Where's my millions? Yeah, where's my millions? Yeah, yeah. AP Murphy, you're not that weird. You're too nice. So yeah, sorry. Like most of you here are just too nice. I think that's our problem. But yeah, second edition. I'm really looking forward to it. We're gonna get bigger font as well. Not just because I went for an eye test today, and it turns out I'm more blind than I thought I was. So it'll be great that it's got bigger font this time. But yeah, really looking forward to it. And that is hopefully coming out in April, maybe early May, but it's definitely going to be a spring launch. And if you already have a copy of Oceanus, you've now got a limited first edition, which is exciting. Bet you weren't expecting that. And if you haven't read Oceanus, then there's a new second edition coming out very soon, and it's going to be released with Tiny Whales Publishing. And yeah, it just feels so weird saying, "Oh yeah, it's going to be released with a publisher." Like, yes, I'm with a publisher. Because when I started out, I didn't know that was going to be what I did. I didn't have any dead set plans. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do it this way, I'm going to do it that way. I've very much been testing the water since the day I started here. And with the rise of AI and the way Kindle and Amazon just, it's like churn a new book out, churn a new book out, keep going, keep going. And I just don't know how authors can do that. It takes me ages. Like, I still can't get over the fact that it takes me months to write something that someone can read in a day. Like, what? I worked really hard on that. I wrote loads of words. How have you just consumed it in a few hours? So that method of doing things, I found certainly after I finished The Ring, which was the second Muldoon book. Once I got to the end of The Ring and it was time to like market and publish and so on, I just thought, I'm exhausted. Like, this is knackering. Is anyone really supposed to be writing and producing books more frequently than this? That was the first 2 years. So September 2024 to say June 2025, I'd released 3 novels. And for me, that felt like, so much work and making sure that it was ready and as you want it to be and so on. It's so much work. Um, and I just thought I can't produce more than that and I can't do it more frequently either. It's just not possible. And also when you've got other books that you've written, you've got to market them all and it's just too much. It's like, how are you supposed to write like a new book every 3 months when you've also got books that you need to market? And I know people say, oh, when you've got a backlist, that's what starts making the difference. But you can't get to the backlist if you've got burnout. So joining forces with Tiny Worlds and just having someone who's got your back, that for me was a huge relief. It was like, okay, I don't have to keep pedaling at 100 miles an hour by myself because someone else is going to come and do a stint at the wheel. So joining forces, especially with others, and going all in with an indie publishing company. For me, I didn't really need to sit and think about it for too long. I just thought, well, what would you rather do? Would you rather be, you know, pedaling really fast trying to get books out to please Amazon's algorithm, or would you rather take your time and build a deeper connection with readers and have a proper book launch each time? And yeah, it was just a no-brainer in the end. So now I predominantly mentioned that my books are available at Tiny Worlds, and I want you to buy them from Tiny Worlds because you're supporting something special. And yeah, and obviously there's other writers as well who are published with Tiny Whales. Sean McDonnell has just released Cherry Kills. That looked like it was an amazing launch. And it did really well. And I was pleased for Sean. I was pleased for Jay. It was a proof of concept for them. And I just thought, well, yeah, I want to be part of that. It's going to be fun. And yeah, it's just something to it just gave me a bit of structure because I felt like when you're doing your own marketing, you're in charge of okay, what, when, where, how. And that can just be so hard to keep on top of, especially when you're writing the next book. Which is important. I know you're supposed to write the next book, but God, it's all just really hard. So yeah, I am published with Tiny Whales Publishing. So if I pop up and you are interested in one of the books, go to Tiny Worlds because you can get it as an ebook and you'll be able to read it on whatever device you've got. It's DRM free, so you can keep it. You can keep it on your computer. You can read it on your tablet, whatever, Kindle, anywhere. And also, there's as of last night, you can now also get The Ring and the Spider on paperback, and there's going to be more paperbacks to come. Jay is only one man, so I'm not going to pressure him to hurry up and get the other paperbacks done. But they will be eventually. So yeah, you'll see me talking about Tiny Worlds a lot because I really believe in it, and also I obviously have a vested interest. But it was a lot of fun joining up with them anyway. So I hope that makes it clear as to what I'm doing with Tiny Worlds. I'm published with them, and that's where I want you to get the books. So there we are. And Oceanus second edition. I'm excited about that. Don't know how it's gonna look or anything yet. But it's nice to be working with someone else on a project like that. The Spider, the Ring, the Shade and the Sands is also on there as well. I mentioned that I think yesterday. I said that in December I released the Shade and the Sands, and it's a short story collection. It's gothic horror meets Victorian Egyptomania, so all that classic haunted artifacts mummies coming back to haunt the living. It was very much influenced by like Arthur Conan Doyle, but also a little bit of Hammer horror from the 50s. Um, it's just a mix of all those things that I love about Egyptomania and Gothic horror. And that is currently at Tiny Worlds as well. Everything is starting to sound like telly shopping. Um, but what I thought I'd do is not just talk about what we're getting up to with regards to publishing, but also what I've been doing behind the scenes. So obviously, I've just said I'm published with Tiny Worlds now. I have also been working a lot on my personal blog. So I do have a website. It's just hannadelaneyauthor.com. And on there, I figured that would be my space to kind of blog about other authors, what they've been working on, interviews, book reviews, all the things that I don't really feel I have the space for on Substack because my Substack at the moment is primarily me just sharing fiction that I've written. So I thought, okay, well, let's create another space where I can kind of interview other authors, talk about books I'm reading, talk about popular culture, film, genres, all that jazz. Um, so that's what else I've been busy doing, and this is why I've just got no time at the moment, and this is why I feel like I haven't really been on Substack much because I'm just swamped, really busy. Um, so yeah, I've been developing the personal blog, and it's just another way to kind of get external traffic coming towards Substack for me. And then probably by extension for you as well, because then they'll discover, oh, there's fiction on here. And then that's a lot of us. Um, I don't know if you, back to Tiny Worlds, I don't know if you saw the Tiny Worlds Quarterly came out. I think it was the end of last month or early this month. And that is basically it's an ebook. It's a collection of a few short stories written by a few indie authors. And you may not remember, but a couple of years ago, I wrote a story called For Better, For Worse. There's a bit of a fun kind of twist in that story. And I featured it in the quarterly as well. That was free until recently. I think it's only, I don't know, $1 something or pounds. I can't remember. But yeah, it's nothing. It's just a little but it's a good little snippet. It's a good little taster of what everybody is writing. And I'm in there, Lindsay Resnick is in there, Sean McDonald's in there, Jay Curtis, and Ben Wakeman, who you might know from around Substack as well. We are all in this little kind of sci-fi weird fiction little ebook. So you should check that as well, just to see what the authors are all about on Tiny Worlds. Again, another thing I was just really excited to be involved with. Um, and what else is going on? Oh yeah, so Cherry Kills by Sean is actually what I'm currently reading. I'm at a point with with our youngest where I don't know, I get to read like maybe one page a night. Because I'm just knackered. I am just knackered. Um, but I'm working my way through that, and I'm quite grateful that it's a novella because I'm just not getting any time to read at the moment. And I finished The Exorcist last week as well. First time I've seen watched that, read that. I've never seen the film, so I'm going to plan to watch that soon as well. Um, yeah, let's do a reading of some of the stories. I've been doing this thing all over social media where I'm just reading excerpts from the stories, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that because no one else is doing it. And some people might be interested. They might want to read along. So yeah, what I thought I'd do today is just do a little reading of the books because it's all well and good me saying, oh yeah, you should go to Tiny Wheels and read me stuff, but like, maybe I could just read it to you. That'd be nice as well. Um, but yeah, The Spider, not my best book. When you've worked through a few more stories or anthologies or whatever, you come back to stuff and you're like, God, I don't really like that now. Um, but I keep saying to myself, I keep saying to others, this is a growth thing. It just shows that you've developed. Doesn't make it any easier though when you're reading back over something you've written. So I wonder where AP Murphy is up to in The Spider. If he's still there. Yeah, Detective Noir. Would you say that's what this is, The Spider? Um, read a bit of Detective Noir. So let's see, what do we like? What do we like? What did he say? Oh yeah, you're reading The Spider Myth. Da, 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 da. I should have thought of this before I came on. What am I going to read? Exactly. Oh, chapter 2. Okay, great. Well, that's not good. Okay, I'll just read a little bit from what comes ahead, but there won't be any major spoilers. It'll just be a little bit. Um, yeah, no. When people say, "Oh yeah, I read it in the day," I'm like, "Are you joking?" It took me months. So let's go to the seance. Oh, Muldoon, that'd be good actually. Right, let's have him touching the clock. So I've talked about this with Ian Barr. Muldoon does have extra abilities. He's able to kind of get a sense for things. Um, a bit like Theo in Mike Flanagan's Haunting of Hill House. Don't know if you've seen that. I loved it. Um, Man, where's he going to touch this clock? Yeah, I really could have done with bookmarking this before I went to it. Okay. Okay, so this is Muldoon has come to the family home, and in the Spider, like I can tell you this without it being spoilers, but Daniel Muldoon is called out because of accounts of potentially a possession or a haunting. There's something going on that the police they don't have anything to go on, so they're not investigating it. But because the housekeeper knows someone who knows the chief, he just says, "Okay, well, I know a fella who might be able to deal with this," and it's all superstition and people saying, "Oh no, I don't believe in that," and so on. So, Muldoon is called to come to the house. Um, his observation was interrupted by the striking of the grandfather clock behind him, calling for his attention. He approached it slowly, reading the numbers on the clock face. It was 12 o'clock. Compelled by a force he hadn't noticed before, he touched the wood of the clock until a sharp, hot sting shot through his fingertips all the way into his gut, forcing him to pull his hand away. Danger. He fixed his eyes on the swinging pendulum that glided back and forth in harmony with the beating of his heart, until it slowed completely. The hallway around him darkened to a point where he could only make out his warm breath at sub-zero temperatures, and transformed to a candle-lit hallway. When he looked at the glass around the door, the sky outside had blackened. In the corner of his eye, a shadow moved away from him, walking towards the stairs. He turned to look at the woman being dragged up the stairs by her feet. Her eyes, dead and hollow, stared right at him as he followed the trail of blood to the staircase. Her long chestnut hair draped like a train as her head rolled over each step and hit the lip with a bump. Muldoon stepped forward to follow and narrow his eyes. The body was being dragged up the stairs by a man with no face. Okay, there we go. He touches the clock, and sees something weird on the stairs. Um, And he goes back and he just looks, and the carpeted stairs that have just been coated in a woman's blood are completely clean. There's nothing there. There was no one in the hallway, and unable to move any further from the vision, he stepped outside for a cigarette. So Muldoon drinks and smokes a lot, but I think all detectives do in fiction. It's like in noir and mysteries. There's not many detectives who don't have a dirty habit. But yeah, Muldoon. I think it was something that I think Lisa Kuznak mentioned, or Ian Barr just said about in fiction everybody smokes, but in real life hardly anyone does. So that was an extract from The Spider. So it's a story about a man who he returns to his family in Liverpool. He left them a couple of years ago to go and find his fortune in Australia. At the time, you could absolutely do that. You just go and get a flock of sheep, or you go into the gold mines. Australia was like where a lot of people found their fortune. And that's what John Bryant does. So he comes back to his family, and he moves them into this nice new house because he's wealthy now. Um, and the wife, Frances Bryant, she's excited to move in and start with their new life. But then she senses something's wrong. Like, what's wrong with this house? She senses there's something malevolent that follows her everywhere she goes. And she can't get away from it. She can't let go of it. She can't stop thinking about it. Um, and it gets to the point where, people just think, oh, she's mad, or she's just anxious about the house, or she's still struggling to come to terms with her new status. And then when Daniel Muldoon is called, he discovers that this is just the beginning of a real mess, and it's a big tangled web of mystery, basically. But yeah, all detectives have some kind of weakness. Yeah, Sherlock Holmes with his opium. Yeah, all of them do. So Muldoon, only on reflection, I'm like, well, he actually drinks and smokes a lot. Um, but I think he needs to, given what he's going to come across in this. So that was The Spider, and it's currently available not just as an ebook, but also as a paperback on Tiny Worlds Publishing. Um, oh, and The Midnight Vault also is, obviously. But as well, I was going to talk to you about The Ring today because The Ring, I would say, if you asked any author, like, what is your best work? What do you think the best thing you've ever written is? This would be mine. So The Ring would be the story that I wish more people had read, because I feel it was my best work, or at least so far, I feel it's my best work. Um, and this won't reveal anything about the spider. There'll be no spoilers. Unless Muldoon having multiple books in a series is a spoiler. So he's going to be all right in the spider. But the ring is the spider was kind of a hint at a kind of supernatural or paranormal element. But the ring, I fully went into it. I was like, no, come on, we're gonna have supernatural suspense in this the whole way through. So this one is just set, the following summer, the summer after the events of the spider, and Constable Lacey, who has previously worked with Muldoon, he's young, he's just a constable. He wants to have a go at some detective work. He fancies himself a detective. So he's given an investigation. It's like, okay, well, this known thief is missing. Why don't you go and look into that? So James Lacey ends up going to the slums. So in Liverpool, that is Scotland Road. That's where originally a lot of the slums were, in that area. And that's where Lacey goes, where he has to investigate the disappearance of a local thief. And all fingers point to the Travelling Circus, which has just pitched up round the corner on one of the playing fields. So Lacey, he gets a bit of advice from his boss, and then he goes and investigates. He goes and asks questions at the circus. However, it's a circus. So he's dazzled by the magic, but also he finds himself absolutely baffled by the ringmaster Ezra Fontini, and then he's infatuated with the trapeze artist Ellen French. So he's doing a great job so far. This is his first detective case, and he's swooning at the sight of the trapeze artist. And this show, this traveling circus, Fontini Circus, it's welcomed by the locals until the headline performer is found dead. And when the police go to investigate this, they can't explain it. They're like, right, this is too weird. Like, we can't explain this. There's these bodies turning up. We don't know how it happened. We need Muldoon. And this is the bit where Daniel Muldoon gets called out, and it's like, he's that detective who's just got that extra something. Let's just ask him to deal with this. So they call on Daniel Muldoon to find out what's going on. What's keeping people from leaving their homes after dark? Who is responsible for all these bodies? Why is this all so weird? These are the questions that they're going to ask Muldoon in every story in the series. Like, come on, Muldoon, explain this. Or Mulders, as Gil calls him. So I'll just read to you a bit of the prologue because I bothered to do a prologue in this book. Didn't get around to them in the other books. This was the first time I did the prologue. Like I said before, if someone asked you what's your best work, I would say The Ring was, for several reasons. It was dark by the time the circus arrived in Liverpool. Enormous wooden wheels creaked as they rolled through squelching, uneven mud. Is this it? The man driving the leading cart asked, looking out at the veil of torrential rain. In the drenched warmth of the summer night, everything was heavy with the scent of hay, leather, and sweat. The lantern on the cart swung violently, threatening to detach at the next dip. Yes, said the cloaked man next to him. He muttered something that the driver couldn't hear and waved his hands. Speaking more clearly this time, he said, "This is the place, I promise you." He pulled his hood down to reveal masses of dark wavy hair and secured his top hat on his head. His ringed fingers twinkled in the lamplight as he struck a match and lit another lantern with filthy hands. The driver stopped the cart and held out a palm to the sky. The rain lessened off. Moments before, two urchins had watched the gaudy convoy of wagons veer left off Scotland Road and onto the designated green, quickly churning it into a quagmire, muddying the travellers' shoes and boots as they disembarked. Somewhere in the distance, the animals protested in their various calls and grunts. Some noises were familiar, other noises sounded strange and unsettling. Amidst the undulating din, a woman laughed. The boys stalked the train of vehicles in the darkness, ducking beneath the windows of the carriages as they came to a halt. They stopped when they saw the carriage door open, and as fast as rats, scurried into safety, squatting beneath the wheels. They listened. "I wish we could have come on the train," a small man said, picking a splinter out of his bare shoulder. They couldn't see who he was talking to, but some people were still in the carriage above them. "At least we're here now, eh?" he said, looking up at the lit cab. "It looks dreadful out there," said a young woman. "It's not too bad. We've ground sheets, I suppose." The small man standing in the mud looked around, surveying the bleak surroundings. Tiny yellow squares winked at him from within the gloom like eyes, the windows of the few slum dwellers who were still up. The small man stretched and yawned. The boys remained still. They watched as a pair of black shoes lowered themselves from the steps slowly, landing in the mud. The black shoes belonged to a man wearing white stockings. Would have been nice to have done a parade first, the man with the white legs said. He sounded funny to the children, speaking in an accent they didn't recognize. They heard the young woman laughing again, a shrill, wild laugh. What's so funny? Whitelegs asked, unamused. You look so sad about it, said the woman from inside the carriage. There was a pause, and the man with the white legs sighed. I thought we were doing the parade. He waved his arms about, soliciting another giggle from the woman. Nobody said it was off. She laughed harder. Merde, Whitelegs said flatly. What's wrong? The girl asked, calming down. I'm all in white. The laughter started up again until there was a bang on the side of the carriage, shocking the speakers out of their tomfoolery. The children remained still, eyes peeled. Come on, get these tents up, the voice barked. It was the man who'd been sitting with the driver. He had a strange voice too, but it was different to Whitelegs' voice. The boys turned to see his long black boots on the other side of the vehicle. Another door swung open with a creak. Projecting onto the mud, they observed his shadow in what narrow light streamed from the open door. The shadow man was taller than any man they'd ever seen. Long and thin. The crooked man. They'll be all wet and horrible, the woman whined. No, Tilly. The tents are waxed canvas. Do not fear the rain, the man in the long boots said. Now get out. There was a shuffle and a thump above the children as they heard the woman drop back into her seat. The strange man walked past them, his boots squelching along as he banged on the other vehicles with his cane. At a distance, and illuminated by the lanterns, they could see his grotesque features outlined by the light he held in front of his face. He said something to the other travellers and turned away, walking further down the line until he and his billowing long coat disappeared from view. The young woman's whining caught the boys' attention again. Oh, I wish we'd gone through with the parade. It's going to be awful. We had no time for the parade, had to get on the road, the small man said from the other side of the carriage. They had heard men speaking like him before, and his face was round and kind. He was unrolling a large sheet and hammering metal pegs into the ground. Anyway, it's naught to worry about. Let's just get set up, eh? Why did we leave early? Asked the woman, leaning out of the window. I don't know the specifics, said the smaller man, down on one knee with his mallet. But we're here a day early. Folk got spooked again, perhaps. He hammered the peg in and moved to the next corner. Don't blame him, like, he said with a lowered voice. Whitelegs shushed him. The girl sighed. Oh, it's not ideal, Thomas. No one even knows we're here. Whitelegs walked to the end of the carriage and back. That could change, he said. The boys yelped when Whitelegs suddenly shoved his face under the carriage. Hello there, he said. You can come out now. The frightened faces stared up into the light of the lantern Whitelegs was holding. Large, white eyes sprang out of their gaunt, muddy faces. Whitelegs, it appeared, was white all over. With black eyes and a black tear on his cheek. You want to give us a hand? The white-faced clown asked. The two boys nodded silently, dazed by the striking clown face smiling down at them as they emerged from beneath the carriage. The clown looked them up and down. No shoes. No sleeves were too short. Trousers lacking the love of a mother's mending needle. Are you all alone here? He asked. They nodded. The small man erecting the tent stopped for a moment and studied them too. What? Who are they? asked the girl. They could see her now. She wore a neat little hat and a dark travelling gown. I found some children, the clown said, but we must be quiet. He placed a finger on his lips and patted them on the head. Fontini doesn't like children all that much, he said quietly. Hugo, the girl snapped. He ignored her. Do you like rock? The clown asked. He pulled out of his bag and waved a stick of it at them. Their little faces lit up, and Hugo nodded with them. Everybody likes rock, he agreed. Hugo, don't, the girl said quietly. Shh, it's fine. The clown towered over them, his dark shadow absorbing them as he stood there. He looked about to make sure they were as alone as they seemed. Come and give us a hand, he said. We have lots of rock. So that was the prologue of The Ring. Got me tongue-tied only about once or twice. Forgot where I was, maybe once. You need to be reading this with a ruler. So you don't forget. But The Ring, if anyone asked, that is the one that I just think that's the best thing I've ever done. I'd love it if more people read that. Because it's just a completely different story to The Spider. But it's still Muldoon. And what else I thought I'd do, because there's some people joining us a bit later. Yeah, it's got some It vibes. The opening of The Ring, I decided on purpose, tell it from the little boy's point of view. What would they think if they just watched this traveling circus arrive and they're hiding because they want to get a better look, but they're just kids? How would they see it? So at first, I didn't have their point of view. I just had it like completely open and describing everybody, humanizing everybody. But I thought having two little urchins kind of watching from the sidelines and then coming over for a closer look, I thought that might create a bit more kind of mystery to the characters. And it does, you get to know them like further on in the story, but at the start it's like, oh god, it's a gothic horror novel, it's a traveling circus, there's a clown, and just let the readers think what they will about that. But no, I love that book. Um, yeah, so I think Jay actually put that on Tiny World's paperback. Is on there now, but the ebook's been there since I said yes to joining forces. But yeah, no, love that book. You're supposed to love what you've made, aren't you? But yeah, loads of love for that book. And what I thought I'd do as well is purely because of the pace, because of just everything that I've been doing and everything that's been happening lately. I haven't talked much about The Shade in the Sands. And technically this was my first short story collection that I've ever published. And I actually published there's two stories in The Shade in the Sands that I've never published anywhere else. That was really hard for me to do because I'm a big sharer. I love to just share everything. I'm like, I've written this, I'm gonna share it with the world. So deliberately hanging on and waiting and releasing that in a book was really hard. Like, because I can't help myself. I just like, oh yeah, go on, I'm gonna get it on Substack, I'm gonna share it. But I thought, no, let's leave something to the book. So that was the first time I did that. And both pieces, actually, the woman with the emerald eye and the shade in the sands, quite big stories. The woman with the emerald eye is about 15,000 words, something like that, and the shade in the sands is about 18, 20, something like that. So they're quite big short stories. And I just had a great time writing them. And I think because because they were so long, they weren't really stories that I could just put on Substack. I can't just post this short story on a Friday afternoon. So, and they just worked better being put into the book. Um, and also the woman with the emerald eye, that was a first for me because that is basically like gothic romance. Um, and I've never really solely written something like, you know, focused on the romance, but I read The Mummy, Ramses the Damned by Anne Rice, September time, October, something like that. And I just thought, oh, that was so much fun. I loved the blend of horror and romance. How'd you do that? Um, so I just thought, give it a go, get it in there. Let's do The Woman with the Emerald Eye, which I'm sure people are gonna like because it's as dark as it is like romantic. It's quite. I gave it to Emily Hurricane to like proofread for me, and it is a combination of horror and romance, and the horror is quite gross. Um, but I had a great time writing that one. And Shade in the Sands, I that's the feature story. So what I'll do is I'll read you a little bit of the Shade in the Sands. Um, I had so much fun doing this one, and if you ever written a story where every time you come back to it to do a bit more, you just catch yourself reading the story again. Um, and doing the Shade in the Sands was a pain in the ass in that respect because I kept going back to it, and then I'd just be reading it, and then I get to the end and go, "Oh, I've got to end it now. I've got to add something at the end." But I just caught myself reading it, and uh, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good story, but that's it. I mean, you've got to like what you're reading. You might be the only one doing it. So, Shade in the Sands. Let's do this. Shall I give you? Yeah, let's give you chapter. So it's so big, it's in little chapters. And I liked the little can't remember what it's called. The special Egyptian words. Um, Sean McDonald now, if he's still here. Um, but yeah, let's have a go at this. So, Shade in the Sands. This is the chapter 2. March 1887. Widowhood seemed ill-suited to Minnie Wainwright. Like wrestling and coal mining and hunting with dogs, there were things that simply weren't Minnie, and this was one of those things. I could not believe she was a widow, and I could not believe she was there in her corporeal form in the lobby of the Manor House Hotel on that late morning of March 1887. Like the Queen of Sheba, she sailed into the hotel with an army of porters carrying her various hat boxes and her portmanteau. Every man in the lobby turned his head, naturally. And naturally, Minnie demonstrated her sweet obliviousness to just how beautiful she was. She greeted passing Americans as they wished her a good day, ma'am, and prepared for their desert horse rides. And she smiled when the young Egyptian apprentices skipped past to catch up with their masters. My heart, at first seeming to skip a beat, broke into a thumping run. Minnie was, and always had been, the most beautiful creature I had ever seen. I could not let her see me, not then, not as I was. She hadn't seen me sitting there reading a newspaper in the corner. Her gloved fingers drummed on the reception desk of the hotel as she waited for someone to acknowledge the bell. She responded to a friendly British couple who wished her a good morning in passing and looked around the lobby. She was in Giza. Minnie in Giza. I blinked several times until I was sure that yes, that's her. Dear God, what is she doing here? Her public-facing, disarming smile settled the bubbling storm in my gut for a moment. It was time to make an escape. I raised my newspaper slightly and slumped down behind it. I'd wait until she was shown to her room and slip out. I couldn't see her. Not now. Possibly not ever. What was she doing in Giza? As curious as I was to know, I suspected what the answer would be, and, realizing that I didn't want to talk about it, tried to think of other possible reasons. There were none. I looked at the date in my paper. It was certainly the anniversary of his death, or at least the day they signed the certificate. I peered over the top of the paper to see if she was still there. She was speaking with the manager, too far away for me to hear the details, but I assumed it was about a room. I spied another glance a few minutes later. They were still talking. Until they weren't. Whatever they were talking about now resulted in the manager directing Minnie's attention to my corner of the lobby. To my chagrin, they were both looking at me. In some fit of insanity that I still can't explain to this day, I looked down as though I couldn't see them. Tom? Her voice was unmistakable and resurrected the long-dead butterflies thought to have perished the day she announced her engagement to someone else. Tom? I heard her say it again. I looked up. Her brow, initially furrowed, relaxed with her face as she realized that yes, it was me. She was walking over now. Tom, how are you? She asked, her dimples deepening as her face became clearer to me. I asked the manager about the portrait above the desk and he said you did it. I thought, I know that name. And oh, it's so wonderful to see you. The overwhelming nature of this occurrence paralyzed me in the chair. It was too much, too soon. But somehow, I eventually floated into her gravitational pull. She waved some air onto her lovely face and neck with her little fan, no doubt a silk oriental number bestowed on her by one of her current admirers. I watched a party of rebellious curls that had loosened and fallen across her heart-shaped forehead. Her lips formed into a seraphic smile. Damn your eyes, Tom. I was still an idiot, starved of air in the grip of an uncontrollable, all-consuming love. I must have assumed you were still in Paris, she said innocently. Tom, you dog. I decided not to go, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I thought I'd stay and carry on with the business. I remembered it as though I'd written it only the day before. In our correspondence following his death, I told her I was leaving Egypt and travelling through southern Europe until I'd found my way back to Paris. She wanted to come to Cairo before I left. I said no. I'm so sorry, I'd forgotten to mention the change of plan. I hated every minute of it. Lying to a woman I loved with all of my being. But it was for the best. With the grace and agility belonging to women of her class, she changed the subject. It's quite hot, is it not? Her pink cheeks glowed, illuminating her bright eyes. I realized I was standing up, but I hadn't said anything. I'd left her to peddle through the conversation survival kit in her mind. I coughed nervously. Yes, it is. Rather hot. How long have you been here? I tucked my newspaper under my arm, no doubt blackening the pit of my shirt with ink and sweat. I didn't mean for it to sound so accusatory. I shook my head and laughed at myself. Forgive me, I'm all the better for seeing you. Honestly. Very kind of you. Everything around us seemed so unearthly silent for a moment. The porters, I presumed, had taken our belongings up to our room already. The manager was nowhere to be seen. It was just us, in the grandeur of the palatial lobby. She was looking right at me. I arrived last night, she said. The journey was rather tiring, so we stayed one night on the steamer from Port Said and made our way over here this morning. We? I thought. She didn't elaborate. I've come to. She waved a hand away, unable to say anything more. I knew what she wanted to say. I hadn't said his name either in over 6 months. She fanned her face some more. It's so good to be here. It's beautiful. She nodded toward the open window behind me, the full view of the pyramids available to see, as though someone had hung a painting there. I didn't realize they would be this close, she remarked. Against the cerulean sky, they could have been cast in pure gold, with the way the sun made them glow. Yes, I said, agreeing with her comments. It's losing its novelty now, but there's still a majesty to them. My affinity with the pyramids, even after everything that had happened over the past year, baffled even me. Although no longer as exciting as they were when I first arrived, the tombs of these ancient foreign kings compelled me to stay. I photographed the pyramids more times than I could remember, handing over the prints to tourists who eagerly wanted them. I understood it. There is only one first time, of course, and then it is gone. Like a creased bedsheet, a finished cigar, or the lingering scent of your beloved's perfume. Only the traces of where an experience was can ever be revisited. Everything else exists at the mercy of the mind. I wanted to believe that. I really did. Have you been inside? She asked, still looking at the pyramid in the distance. I nodded. People usually climb up to the top of them, however. Really? Oh, that would be interesting. It's a spectacular view up there, I said. I could have kicked myself. Perhaps we could go together, I suggested. There were two beasts inside me. One wanted to flee with his tail between his legs and never see Minnie again, and the other wanted to remain by her side for eternity. They fought a bloody, biting battle while we talked. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Our eyes met. She blushed. I felt my heart ache as though we were 16 again, standing in her mother's rose garden. If there'd been a potion or a curse or even a wish at that moment that could have transported us back in time, I would have given everything I had in order to obtain it. Minnie, although, as with all of us, growing older by the hour, seemed as though she'd found the elixir of life and had stashed it away in her pocketbook for safekeeping. The beam of sunshine held her beauty in its light, rendering me helpless. Okay, I'll stop there. So that was part 2 of The Shade in the Sands, which is quite a big story. It's about a man who he runs a photography business in Giza in Egypt, because it was a booming business in the late 19th century in Egypt. A lot of photography of the pyramids, of the tourists. When they built the Suez Canal, that made passage to the east a lot easier for ships coming down through Europe. And after Napoleon had come to Egypt, and his soldiers had rediscovered like the Rosetta Stone and the tombs and the treasures and so on, the amount of tourists who flocked to Egypt, that was like the start of a love affair that still exists today. But photography businesses, I wanted to tell basically a ghost story, but set in Egypt. So that's what The Shade in the Sands is about. It's about a photographer who he lost his business partner, and then the wife of his business partner turns up, and Tom has to do everything he can to make sure that what happens, what happened to his partner doesn't happen to her. But at the same time, he doesn't want to tell her what happens. So it's a ghost story. And also it's about this one man's fight to protect someone he loves, even if she married someone else when she had the choice. Um, so yeah, that was The Shade in the Sands. And that is yet another book that is available at Tiny Whales Publishing. Um, Thank you for hopping on with me tonight. I didn't let anyone know that I was going to be doing this. I just popped on when I had a free moment, read some bits to you, let you know what's happening with Tiny Worlds, and just showing my face and letting you know everything's fine. I am just mega busy. So thank you for popping on, and I will see you around the stack. And I will do another update soon.